Hello everyone, my name is James Zuniga and I'm the player that made third place at Game Guys Locals yesterday, Friday, playing Rezael. I decided to play Rezael that night because I just put it together during the week and I thought, you know what, let me give it a shot at Locals and see what happens. And it went really well. We ended up going 4-1. There were 5 rounds total and was able to get third place. So without further ado, let's go into the deck profile. Oh, and I want to give a quick shout out to TCG Junkie for wanting to do this deck profile of my deck. So if you haven't subscribed to their channel yet, please do so. Show him the love and support. He's a really good guy. Definitely want to see his channel grow. But yeah, without further ado, let's go into the deck profile. So as I was saying, I played Rezael. So I was playing the usual ride line that you'd see for Rezael, the grade 1 from the Alden ride line that basically lets you check the top 5 cards of your deck when wrote upon to get a grade 1 or less to rear. If not, you get to call them from Cell from Soul. But you have to reveal 3 cards of different grades in your hand. So make sure that when you're using this guy specifically in your deck to have at least, a nice balance of 0s, 1s, 2s, and 3s. So that way you can proc his effect off consistently. And then we have the Rezael grade 2 ride line that when you ride on it, you get to call any grade 2 or less from drop. And then the Rezael himself that when he swings at a van, you can counterblast to call 2 different grade units from the drop to rear, as long as their grades are equal to or less than the total damage you have. And then the divine skill of returning all your crits from the drop zone. And the next time you would take a 6 damage, if it's not a heal trigger, you get to heal. So that's that. Then we'll go into the actual deck. So for grade 3s, because Persona rides are very important, and Rezael himself is very important, I run 3 extra copies, and then the 1 chalice as well. The rear guards sometimes don't really hit for very big numbers, so being able to see your Persona rides and activate it consistently is very important. And then the one of other grade 3 I'm running is this guy right here, the Gigantic Masher. Basically, he gets an extra 15k if he sees something called, or if a unit was called through Rezael's ability during that turn. So he's also a nice beat stick to have in the deck. I see some people run 2 of. I decided to do it as a 1 of because I wanted to try other units in the deck. And honestly, running him as a 1 of hasn't been an issue for me, especially with how much manipulation I try to do with the deck. I usually do see the 1 of. So just food for thought. And then we're going to the grade 2s. So I do run the T-Fault with the grade 2 order that lets you draw 2. Most lists I see run 4 of each. Again, I was trying to different types of units in the deck, and I was trying to cut space somewhere, so I decided to go for a 3-3 count of the T-Fault and the order. And honestly, I still saw it pretty consistently. So the 3-3 worked for me. Basically, you get to draw 2 off of this, and then once you play a normal order for the turn, when you call her by not a unit's ability, you can Soul Blast 1 to check top 5 to call a unit. She's also a beat stick in that she can get 10k when she swings at a grade 3 or greater. And if you have 4 units on the board, 4 or more, she counts herself as one of the 4 because she doesn't say 4 more other. So I ran this as a 3-3. And then for the other 2s, I also ran 3 of this dude, Nobiris. Definitely a good card to run in the deck. I think a 3 of works just fine. I don't think you need to run 4. But if you like the card a lot and you want to run it as a 4 of, then by all means go right ahead. Basically, he just becomes 20k on his own when he's put on rear by your grade 3 or greater Vanguard's ability. So basically, if you call him out through Rezael's ability, he gets an extra 10. And then he's kind of like an OTT type of effect if you play Premium or V, in that after he attacked, if your Vanguard is a Rezael, basically, you can Energy Blast 3, put him in the Soul to draw a card, and then look at the top card of your deck and stack it on top or bottom. So he gives you extra Soul, he lets you draw a card, and he gets to filter your deck a little bit and try to stack it with triggers to try to make, scene triggers more consistent. Which that effect was very important for me in the tournament. So it's that. And then we ran the 3 Biscottis. I don't think 4 is necessary. Definitely would run the 3 though. 2 is too low. You won't see her enough, at least in my playtesting. But 3 seems to be a solid number. She's basically your discard from hand when you ride, to be able to energy blast 3 or counter blast to draw. So that distinction is important, especially since these two cards are fighting for the energy usage. So sometimes I'll discard her and counter blast, or especially if I'm going to want to do plays with this, or if I don't see this guy at all, during the game, like I haven't gone into him yet, so I can use the energy blast for her instead. So just depends. She also lets you kind of stack the top card of your deck. So when she's placed on rear, if you Persona Rev that turn, you can energy blast 3 or counter blast. You check top 3. You can put 1 on top and then the other 2 cards on the bottom of the deck. Increase your chances of triggers again. But if you placed her that's not during the battle phase, you can call the card instead of leaving it on top of your deck. So that effect was actually quite important when I play with the deck and I do the Persona Ride turns. I usually use her to either, if I have her in hand, I'll call her to make a board. But normally I'll call her out in the middle of the battle phase with Rezael, so that way I can check the top 3 and try to stack a trigger on top for my drive checks. So that was the main usage for her in my deck, besides the discard for the ride. So definitely, if you can get your hands on 3, that's more than enough. If you want to try 4, you can definitely try it out for yourself, but I think 3 is a solid number. Then I ran the 2 Kadwalas. Basically, it is a grade 2 or greater searcher after it attacks for a Soul Blast and retiring itself. Basically used it to search out my Persona Rides, because again, like I said earlier, Persona Rides are very important for the deck. So being able to search for and add it to hand so you can ride it for next turn is very, very important. This also can search for grade 2 combo pieces. For example, if I have the grade 2 Pot of Greed order, basically, I can search for T-Fault with it, or I can use him to search for Nobris or another Biscotti. It's just a combo piece searcher mainly, and it also uses the soul that I don't really use the soul for much else. So I'm able to soul blast cards out of like the Nobris if I already used it. So that way I can get into the drop to be able to call out with Rezael. And then the last grade 2 in my list is actually 2 Sephiras. So I've been playing this card a lot, testing it out along with the other multi-nation cards, and I have to say this is by far my favorite one of them all thus far. Being able to just call it to look at the top card of your deck and either leave it on top or mill it to the drop. So basically milling a normal unit or leaving a trigger on top is very powerful. And then on top of that, I can counterblast to get a normal order from drop to hand. So again, I can add the Pot of Greed order to hand, or I can call out a grade 2 or greater unit. So if I don't have any other attackers in hand, I can call her, look at the top card, stack it basically, and then call out another attacker to the other rearguard circle. And this card was very important in my matches for the most part, in that it allowed me to look at the top card, stack it with a trigger for drive check purposes. Or I saw a combo piece and I thought, oh, I really want that on the board, so I'll just put it to the drop so that way I can call it out with her. I think she's really good. If you haven't tried her in your Rezael decks, I would try it. Yeah, it's a counterblast, and yes, she has to be called from hand to do her skill, but because Rezael has his own counter chargers that are not very hard to fulfill the conditions or pay the cost too much with this deck, I think she's really worth it. So definitely try to fit her in her decks and give her a try, guys. Also, very good card in premium as well. We love it in Aquaforce. Just throwing that out there. But that's for my grade 2s, and then we'll go to my grade 1s real quick. So everyone loves the Keter Doggo. If you play Keter, you run this card as a 4 of. I don't see why you would run it less. I guess you want to try different units and see how other units work out, but this is just a really good early aggression, really good just adding cards to hand throughout the whole game. It's a 13k booster that lets you check the top 2, add 1 to hand, put the other on bottom by retiring itself. So you can retire it and then keep calling it back out with your other effects that call units from the drop, like Rezael specifically, or the grade 2 in the ride line. So I don't see a reason why you wouldn't want to run the 4. It's just free. But then, as I was saying, for counter chargers, so I run 2 of the Sage and then 1 of the Doggo. So my reasoning is because I like to run cards that manipulate the deck. Look at the top card, stack it there, or mill it to the drop to call it through Rezael. I'm able to see these quite consistently, so running it at a lower count in my deck just works out for me. The special 15k booster, counter charger for Rezael, and then the discard actually does matter sometimes because I'll be able to discard a normal unit that I want to call out with Rezael, so I can boost, discard first, counter charge, and then get the counter blast back to be able to do it with Rezael to call out the units I maybe discarded or that I haven't dropped already. And then this is just a really solid target to keep calling out with Rezael. It's a 13k booster that at the end of the battle retires itself to counter charge. Again, low count for me works just because of how the deck was built and played out. So yeah, these are my counter chargers for the deck. And then I run 2 of this grade 1 right here, the Bradyarch. So he's the dragon that came out of Festival Collection that lets you bring back cards that were discarded during your turn back to your hand if you pay the energy 3 and then remove itself. I didn't really use it for that effect. I think I only did that effect once or twice throughout the whole tournament. The main usage that I had for him was when he's called to rear, you get to look at the top card of your deck and either leave it on top or bottom, and then he gets an extra 2k, so he's a 10k attacker or booster. So you can, again, manipulate your deck, stack it with triggers, or if it's a normal unit, you can just put it to the bottom. Definitely one of my MVP cards of yesterday, along with Saphira right here. Just being able to manipulate the deck, keep looking at it, check it, top, bottom, or put it to the drop. So definitely cards I would try out in your Rezael decks if you haven't already. I promise you it's worth it. And then we just finish off with the PGs, just the standard 3 PGs and then the 1 Elementarium. So in case you run into guard restrict decks, mainly is why I run it. Besides Blackmire, because he tells you no, you can't play a Sentinel at all, so rip. But besides Blackmire, you know, against most guard restrict decks, this just gets around it, and then just the standard 3 PGs. Because why would you not run 4 PGs? I don't know. And then I'm gonna go into the triggers. So because it's Rezael and it's a very much a crit focused deck, since he wants to return crits back to deck, we play our 8 crits. To be honest with you, if you don't have Blade Feather Dragon crits, you don't really need them. You can replace these with vanilla crits if you want. But if you have them, definitely run them because the extra soul sometimes does come up. But the 2k from it, not so much though. And then we run the 3 draws because 10k shield draws is nice. I have seen arguments and I have tested out running the fronts instead of the draws just to hit higher power thresholds, but I feel because the deck is very combo base reliant with certain pieces, not being able to see those pieces throughout the game really does hurt. So I value the draws more, so that way I can try to hit them to draw into my combo pieces much sooner to be able to do my game plan sooner. But if you rather do fronts because you want to hit higher numbers, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. If you value the higher numbers, go for it. Then we run the 3 regular heals, and then I run 1 multi-attack heal. There are some decks that rear guards just swing extra times, or like the Vanguard, like Varga, will swing an extra time. So I ran the 1 heal trigger in my deck just in case I fight these matchups, and it actually did come up. I did face against Varga. I did face Blackmire twice, and being able to use this against the restanding rear guard that has the crit, just the 1 card guard is really nice, especially if they hit triggers, give it to that grade 2, and then they say, okay, swing for 33 extra crit, you can just drop this on the second attack and go, well, I'm 38 now because of the 15k extra shield. So that was my reasoning to run the 3-1. And then to finish it off, the OT of my choice was the light OT. So I've been testing out the different OTs, the red, the blue, the purple, and now tried this out. And honestly, this actually came up in quite a few of my games on offense, and the extra draws really matter. Because as I said earlier, this deck wants to see certain combo pieces. So being able to see this early, when your opponent doesn't have a board, You can draw the 1 off the 100 million, and then with its additional effect, you can draw an extra 3 cards, 2 for every open rearguard circle and or guardian circle. So if they have an empty board, you can draw 3 off of that, and it really did come up. It was actually surprising how good those draws were off of this. Even if it was just 2 cards or 1, just getting that extra draw really did matter for me. And so definitely going to be running this a lot more, testing it a lot more. But don't sleep on this trigger, guys. That extra draw, I'm telling you, it matters. It comes up. All right. And so that's pretty much my deck. Just to go through the rounds real quick, I was a total of 5 rounds. And first round I had to play against my friend Joe, who was playing Welstra. His triggers, unfortunately, were not on his side, but he was still able to put in some serious pressure. But because I was able to stack my deck as much as I did, I was able to see a lot more triggers. And that just allowed me to overpower his deck. And then the second round was against Miguel, if I remember right, with Blackmire. And that was one hell of a close game. It actually came down to deck out. He eventually decked out, and because I waited to do the Divine Skill later on in the game is what allowed me to not deck out before him. So that was a really fun game. So Miguel, if you watch this, shout out to you, man. That was one hell of a game. And then the third round was against Varga. It was against Eduardo, who made second that night. Solid player. His deck was on point. His triggers were on point early on in the game, and I was scared. I was like, man, this guy's fronts and his crits were like on point. But it was a really good game. I thought it was back and forth for sure. Came down to, he said no guard at 3 damage after I Divine Skilled on a triple drive. He said 2 crits to win, and I only revealed 1. So I wasn't able to end it that turn, and unfortunately he was able to outlast me, and I just couldn't guard all his stuff later on. So it was one hell of a game as well. Then the fourth round was against my teammate, Andrew, who was also playing Blackmire. And again, it was just another struggle fest, swinging at him as much as I could, and he was just able to guard most of my stuff. We actually went into time, and I was able to defeat him within time. But man, Andrew, you crazy. You crazy with Blackmire, man. You need to chill. But yeah, so that was a fun game as well. And then the last round was against Messiah with John piloting it. Another solid player. All solid players at Game Guys for sure. So shout out to Game Guys for having solid players. Shout out to the Houston community for sure, for all the solid players they have and all the different locals. Love it around here. But yeah, against John with Messiah, I went first. When I got up to grade 2, I decided to stick and play the grade 2 game because I had the T-Fault and the Pot of Greed order, the Wisdom order ready to go. So I was able to stick on grade 2 for an extra turn. So he rode up to 3, and it looked like it was all in my favor because I believe the damage was, I was at 0 damage to his, I was like low damage to his 4 damage, I believe. So it seemed like it was just going to go into my favor, but then the game John started doing like really solid like defensive plays, and the game actually ended up being longer than I thought it would be based on the game state at the time, and I'm really glad it did because, man, it was one hell of a game. It ended up being like a really close like nail biter. At least it felt like that to me. So shout out to him as well for a solid gameplay with Messiah. But in the end, I was able to take that match. And yeah, that was my 5 rounds. And then they decided to cut the top 4, and we decided to split top 4. So yeah, that was my deck profile. That was my recollection of the rounds. If I missed anything and the guys are watching this video, please correct it in the comments down below. Again, please go out and support TCG Junkie. Very good friend of mine. Definitely want to see his channel grow, especially for the Vanguard content. But with that, I will catch you guys in the next video, hopefully. Take care.